Hey, Dr. Matt here. So what are the consequences of social isolation? I have 3 grandparents still living productive lives, all over the age of 86, I believe 86, 89, and 90. I have parents in their 60s, in-laws in their 70s, who are also living very productive lives and adding to society. According to their age, they are considered high risk related to the COVID. I don't personally view them as high risk, and I can assure you they do not view themselves at high risk in any way. Even my 90-year-old grandma, who got to have a party just before this whole thing went off, makes sure she gets in her walks outdoors on a daily basis. Even still, their routines have been significantly disrupted by current mandates put in place to isolate and essentially remove themselves from daily living and society as a whole. I have people who message me that leave comments regularly regarding their elderly patients or elderly parents or grandparents or family members who they're living with, who they're caring for, with great concern about them getting the litany of symptoms associated with this COVID and potentially having serious complications. I would like us to take a moment to consider potentially another way of looking at our current situation. And, maybe we're looking at it a little bit wrong. So in Washington State, government officials have instructed elderly people to, remain home, to have groceries delivered, have any vital medications that they need delivered, to avoid literally any social contact, to refrain from getting together with family members, with friends, really for a completely undefined future. And we may think, we're saving them, we're doing them this great service, and perhaps we will, save 1 or 2 or 3 out of thousands of thousands. But you know what? Research doesn't really back that's in fact true, that we are bettering their lives by doing this. The Lancet Journal published a report on March 19th that said, we need to take urgent action. Urgent action is needed to mitigate the mental and physical consequences of isolating our elders. And I think it would be profitable for all of us to consider this. Social isolation among older adults is a serious public health concern. As serious, if not, I would suggest far more serious than the COVID that's going on around out here right now. It is well understood that from the aging process itself, as people get older, that the risk for things like cardiovascular illness, stroke, diabetes, autoimmunity, neurological conditions, mental illnesses, Alzheimer's, dementia, depression, anxiety, all these problems go up, or potential for them increases as we get older. And multiple studies have shown that social disconnection, that removing older adults from society, far more than any other age group, puts them at a much, much, much greater risk of depression and anxiety, which of course, what's that lead to? Medications, which puts them at even a higher risk category for health decline. So having to stay in one room, not being able to go to their places of worship, serve in the soup kitchen, meet for aerobics classes, or go to their swimming pool classes, venture out for coffee with friends or family, or even having that all just has this disproportionately negative effect on the elderly population. Then you consider the number of elderly who are in assisted living facilities and retirement communities, where they're already a slight isolation, but now, they literally are completely cut off from any visitors coming into the rooms. They're having to stay in their rooms, not allowed to go out and mingle. It's super sad. They're not playing games anymore. I mean, I can't imagine that for my grandparents, or from myself personally. In people over 50, confinement and isolation are highly, highly associated with anxiety, withdrawal, aggressive behaviors, paranoia, depression, and then of course, all the way to suicidal behaviors. In fact, there was one study that showed 73% of individuals over the age of 50, just 50, that's 11 years from now, just over the age of 50, kept in confinement, that they ended up having a chronic health condition. 50% or 73% of those over the age of 50 ended up via confinement with a chronic health condition. So loneliness and helplessness, because they're not, when people are not allowed to make decisions for themselves, they feel helpless. And if you've been in that position, that's already a problem for the elderly population. Now it's becoming a huge problem. There's another study showing that the toll of loneliness is literally equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That is the toll on a person's health by being in a state of loneliness and not feeling like they're able, that they can help themselves. There's a Swedish study showing that people feeling lonely or isolated who underwent coronary artery bypass surgery, that they were 2.6 times more likely to die within 30 days, just with that one thing being the loneliness aspect. And then there's another Dutch study that showed a 64% higher risk of dementia in those who are lonely or isolated. These health conditions induced by social isolation, they're not acute. They literally are chronic, and they mark people potentially until their death. I think it's time to consider this and consider the help or the safety we're actually bringing these people. COVID is an acute infection in 82% of people over the age of 80 years old. 82% of people over the age of 80 years old, it's an acute infection that they get over. And as the age decreases, the consequences of contracting COVID also drop aggressively. So what happens so often is we fear, when we're in fear or we're fearing pain or death, and we're letting that be our guiding force, is that we promote and protect literally the very thing we're trying to avoid. We're trying to help our elderly, right? But in the act of protecting and trying to keep them safe, we're actually suppressing their life. We're actually making it more challenging for them to live a life of freedom and vitality and vigor and purposefulness. And we're forgetting that aspect and the fact that has a massive impact on our health. In many cases, we are unfortunately, unbeknownst to ourselves, thinking of ourselves or how we can kind of control others rather than the highest benefit for our family members and our loved ones. I've seen this so many times with patients who have cancer, and they have family members who are really wanting them to do a therapy that's been recommended, but has a very, very low success rate. Like less than 10% success rate of giving them a couple extra months to live, with a massive side effect on the or a ton of side effects to the therapy. But family members are imploring the patient to do this because they're afraid of just doing nothing. Even if doing nothing and going through, say, the chemotherapy regimen both have the same end result of, say, the person passing away within 3 months. So I say all this to put out there Please reach out to your elders, reach out to your grandparents, to your parents, to those who are isolated, confined right now. They literally need you more than ever before. Get them out for a walk. Get them in the sun, get them breathing fresh air. Ask them what they want to do, as opposed to just listening to what the news or the media is telling you to have them do, as far as isolating, and not being around anybody. I say all of this to say, please reach out to your elders. They literally need you more than ever before. Get them out for a walk, get them in the sun, ask them what they want to do, create purpose for them. And opposed to, just listening to what the news is telling you to tell them to do. Consider, what's their risk stratification, how at risk are they truly, and let your parents know, your grandparents know, the elderly in your community know that, hey, they're valuable, and you're not going to just shut them up for the rest of their life. It's their life, and if you have amazing grandparents, in-laws, parents like myself, they deserve the opportunity to continue living their lives, on their own terms, in their community, and let's accumulate health for them. Let's help them accumulate health via allowing them to experience community again. I hope this is helpful. Go in health.